Imagine waking up in a coffin and realizing that you were mistakenly buried alive. Now, this wouldn't happen with the medical guidelines we have today, but in the 19th century, old coffins were found with scratch marks on the inside, making this a legitimate concern. So as a solution, they started adding strings inside the coffins that traveled up to the ground and were connected to a little bell. And if you woke up underground in a coffin, you could just ring the bell, signaling that you're still alive. If you swallow gum, some people believe that it sits in your stomach for over 7 years. But is that actually true? Well, your stomach acid can't break down the gum like it does with other foods. But this doesn't mean it just sits there forever. The gum passes through your digestive system largely intact, moving through the intestines, until finally it exits your body and kerplunks in the toilet. If the rotating chain at the tip of the bar hits something solid, the chainsaw can suddenly kick back toward the operator. Now, unfortunately, this usually happens in the face or neck region, but some chainsaws are designed with safety features like a chain brake, which engage to stop the chain in case of a kickback. This would prevent a deadly scenario. If a dog sucked up water like a human, the water would just fall right out of its mouth. And this is because dogs can't close their cheeks all the way. Instead, its tongue shoots down and bends backwards before being pulled back up. And the force of the impact and the curve of the tongue makes a splash, pulling the water into a rising column. The dog then bites down, catching the water in its mouth and swallowing it, meaning your dog is basically eating its water, not drinking it. The robber fired the gun directly towards the man's hip, but he had his phone in his pocket, protected inside a Hulk case. The bullet slammed into the phone, the screen shattered instantly, but the phone and case absorbed the shot, stopping it before going through the back of the phone. So even though the case didn't protect the phone, it kept the bullet from breaking the bone beneath. The mirrors were attached, and when sunlight hit, it bounced down onto enemy ships. Now, legends say this heat caused them to ignite, destroying the enemy with only sunlight. But when modern scientists tested it, they discovered they would need dozens of mirrors for it to work. The ship would need to stay still for 10 minutes for the wood to heat up enough to catch fire. Flaming arrows would have been much easier, meaning the mirrors were probably better at blinding crews than actually torching. He inhaled the toy traffic cone when he was 7 years old, and for 40 years, he forgot about it. But as he grew older, he started to cough. Doctors noticed his right lung was getting stiff, and when they shone a light down his airways, they found a suspicious shadow. They told him he had a serious tumor and operated quickly, but instead, they found the toy traffic cone. And after removing it, the man's cough went away. If you died and you had no friends, your funeral would be pretty much empty, which is kind of embarrassing. But you can pay professional actors to be briefed on the details of your life, and they'll quietly blend into the crowd during the funeral, making it look like you were popular. They can cry on command, and if no one wants to make a speech, they can even do it themselves, making up heartwarming memories based on their notes about you. She lifted her violin and played as doctors cut into her brain. You see, she had been a violinist for decades, but when she was diagnosed with a deadly brain tumor, doctors told her that removing it might damage parts of her brain, meaning she could never perform again. So after they cut open her skull, they made her play the violin while they gently poked different areas of her brain, marking any spots that stopped her from playing correctly. This prevented any damage to important parts of her brain, and after multiple hours, they finally cut most of it out, and the woman still performs to this day. When you get stitches, a doctor threads a needle through your wound and pulls it tight to close the skin. As the stitches hold the edges together, the wound becomes inflamed as new cells begin to repair the tissue. Afterwards, connective tissues and collagens start to create skin. Then, blood vessels form to nourish these developing tissues, filling in the area. And over a few weeks, the wound will have healed together and the stitches are removed. If you find yourself sinking into quicksand, don't panic. Struggling will only make you sink faster as it creates more suction. Now, quicksand isn't as dangerous as the movies make it seem, but just in case, lean back and try to spread your weight over a larger surface area. Slowly move your legs to create space and allow water to seep in, which will help you float. Use a branch if available to help distribute your weight and pull yourself out gradually. If you were the only man left alive on Earth and everyone else was female, you would be responsible for repopulating the planet. But because all of your children would share half of your DNA, when they had children with each other, that DNA would overlap even more. And in just a few generations, nearly everyone would be close relatives, meaning the gene pool would shrink dangerously fast. Children could be born with misshapen skulls, twisted limbs, and other mutations. Inside, their organs might not develop right, and many wouldn't survive. The more generations pass, the worse it gets, until the population collapses again. He sliced open the bear before squeezing himself inside, then waited silently as the police burst into his room. You see, the teenager had stolen a car, then filled it with fuel and left without paying. When police raided his house, he was nowhere to be seen until they noticed a giant teddy bear looking like it was breathing. They pulled the teen out and arrested him, and he was sentenced to 9 months for his crimes. They took a human skull from a burial ground and cut off the top before cleaning and polishing it. Next, they would carve designs into the bone before attaching metal and precious stones. And this sacred bowl was filled with wine for use in religious ceremonies. It was offered to the angriest gods to symbolize blood. And others contained bread baked into the shape of eyes, ears, and tongues, all just to keep the gods happy. She thought it was a runny nose, but the clear liquid was not mucus. You see, 2 years earlier, she got into a car crash, hitting her head on the dashboard. This broke the thin bone between her brain and her sinuses, and the fluid filling her skull started to leak out, which she thought was just a runny nose. Soon, she was losing 2 cups of fluid a day, until doctors finally found the hole. They took fat from her belly and plugged it, finally allowing her to live normally. Cut the flap in the lid of a pizza box, then cover the hole with plastic wrap and line the whole thing with aluminum foil. Next, add a square of black paper in the bottom. Place your crackers, chocolate, and marshmallow on the paper under the plastic, and use a stick to prop up the lid. Now, if you stick it in the sun, it will reflect off the foil, bouncing down into the box, and the black paper will absorb the heat, while the plastic wrap traps it inside. And after 30 minutes, you'll have a gooey, delicious s'more. Diarrhea exploded from the woman, splattering the seats and dribbling down the aisle. She was on a flight when her stomach suddenly began hurtling, and she got up to use the bathroom, but she didn't make it. The smell hit immediately, making nearby passengers gag and retch. The crew's desperate attempts to clean it only spread the mess further, and it got so bad that the pilot decided to make an emergency landing. They say he had a second face on the back of his head, one that could smile, cry, and even whisper terrible things at night. Legend has it that the face couldn't eat or speak, but it was said to laugh when he cried and mutter words only he could hear. No doctor would remove it, and the man claimed it tormented him constantly. And according to the legend, he couldn't take it anymore and ended his own life, leaving behind a chilling note about his suffering. He attacked his mother-in-law with an iron bar and began stabbing her repeatedly. Then he turned on his father-in-law, choking and stabbing him before leaving them both bleeding. Covered in blood, he drove straight to a police station and confessed, saying he had just killed 2 people. But he insisted that he was sleepwalking the entire time. Experts claim he had no control over his actions, trapped in a deep sleep state. The jury believed him and he was free to go. They would spit on the scorpion's tail to temporarily block the poisoned ducks. Then they would throw them into clay pots and seal them inside. As they were moved around, the scorpions would get angry. And some say that when the enemy attacked, the pots would be thrown down the city's walls. The clay smashed on landing, which would release the angry scorpions. And they would sting the enemy soldiers, leaving painful welts, forcing them to give up and retreat from battle.